Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel and Escape from the City on the ABC. And Ben Kingsley, Chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of the 2018 Property Investment Advisory Firm of the Year.
All right, folks, you're on the Property Couch. Each week, Ben and I bring you the insider's guide of property, finance and money management. Hello, Ben.
Hello, mate. 247.
247.
Not far off the big 250.
250, yeah, which is good.
Hey,
Which is a bit of an achievement. Probably more for us than anything.
Yeah. We'll embellish ourselves a little bit.
Well, no, it's just that we've said it a couple of times along the journey. We just bumped around in the hallway and said, let's just push record and see if this thing flies. And then all of a sudden we realise there's an appetite for it.
Apologies for those first 50 episodes. Content's good.
Content's amazing. You and I just are rubbish. And again, we've said it again. So I said it before, we'll say it again. We're probably still rubbish, but at least we have a decent cheap shot at each other.
Yeah,
these
love
days.
it. Love the banter. Love the banter.
Okay, so we are now in the pre-finals bye.
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
So we bring up the EJ Whitten
congratulations
match.
to the 8 teams that made the AFL finals.
Yeah.
Who are they again, Bryce?
Well, you're about to say it, so you're probably not about to say it. You're probably just about to highlight one exclusion, I would have thought.
Who was that exclusion? I don't need to highlight it now. We all know.
So
they're like the Freo, but they're in a rebuilding stage, probably for the next decade.
All right. Yeah, no problems. Ivis, he has poked the bear, so I am just going to say it. I wasn't going to do it, but it's nice to be from the ivory towers of one of the big four clubs in the heart of the VFL. Mate, if you get a premiership as one of the big four in Melbourne, oh, well done, destination club, everyone wants to go there. It's not unless Port Adelaide or Brisbane or Fremantle or one of those minority teams actually win one. That's real achievement, man. That's real climbing of the mountain.
Success leaves clues, Bryce. Yeah. That's probably all I can say.
Mate, if Fremantle was parked in the middle of Swan Street over there with the beautiful facilities and all of the commercial opportunities that come from being one of the big four in Melbourne, we would smash it, mate.
Would you like to come across?
No, I would not.
Would you like to come across?
I'm just still dirty. I'm still dark. I'm sure. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but that's the way it is. Hey, little shout out, Ben, for the winner this week.
Yes, who was it, Bryce?
Well, not only was it an ace.
9 out of 9.
9 out of 9.
These people must know their footy.
Yeah. Margin of 3, Ben. That's as close to an ace as you get.
Yeah, that's pretty much down the line.
But the person who won is Emma Barracks for wine.
Emma Barracks for wine.
Now, you don't hear from the Stig very often, but we obviously can hear her clap in the background. That's because Emma Barracks for wine actually sits about 1.5 metres away from the Stig.
From the Stig.
Our delightful Emma.
Yes, well done, Em.
Now, I don't think Emma's going to take offence at me saying this, but I don't think footy knowledge is her strength.
No.
So I ran through what her technique was during the week. She said it's usually how I feel. Yeah. What do I feel about the colours? All this. So I don't think it's the most strategic.
Well,
but for her to get 9 out of 9 and 3. Ivis, did you ever get 9 for the season? No, she didn't. No. Ben, did you ever get 9?
No, I didn't.
I think I did.
This year.
I think I did.
Very good.
Just thank you for helping me set that up. So there we go, Emma. Well done. And
she obviously doesn't need a book.
Well, she can have one if she wants. I think she probably...
She might gift a book to someone.
She's licked a few stamps that actually go on the postage to send a few books, so I'm sure she's seen the book, and if she wants to have it, she can. Just another quick one, Ben, you've got a survey that you want to talk about just quickly?
Yes, Bryce. So each year, PIPA, the Property Investment Professionals, send out their investor sentiment survey. So in the show notes, and also to those people who are in our community, in our database, we are going to send them out a link to that. Now, that information is going to be the biggest insight and snapshot into the psyche of the Australian property investor, including about lending and all of those things. So why is that important? Because this is your chance to give us your voice, and we collate that information. So no personal information, just general information. We will ask for income ranges and state that you live in, but that's it. There's no other way of identifying you, and that information is collated. So hopefully we'll get over 1,000, maybe even would be great if we got 2,000 responses to that. Now, what do we use that information for? one is we're gauging the sentiment of the market. Two, it's for informing governments, informing aggregators, lenders in terms of what that information is. So the Property Investment Professionals of Australia, which is the sister association of PICA, is putting this together. They do it every year, and we will obviously be sharing some of those results like we've done in the past on the Property Couch as well. So in the show notes, or if you downloaded any of our information, we have your email address, you will be getting an email from us in the next couple of days.
Well, I could get amongst it, folks. I reckon I'm super excited to see what the results are, just to get a little bit of a snapshot now, because in the past it's been just this big booming market.
Correct.
Now it's a changing equilibrium.
So tell us what you think. It takes about 15 minutes to complete. It's thorough, which was 50 questions. We want it to be that way, right? But it's then, okay, so your voice is being heard and you can see your opinions compared to everyone else's.
And Ben, for the avoidance of doubt, when you receive a group email
and
there's 50, 20, 100 people on it, you have this tendency to not reply because it doesn't refer to you.
Yep.
What we're saying is, if you're listening to this, we want to hear from you.
Totally.
Not your neighbour, not the investor at work. We want to hear from you.
And pass it on to your friends. Everyone who's interested in investment property, whether you're a budding investor, but also someone who's an active investor. We want to know, because we do get a snapshot of who you are in terms of rough numbers of properties you own. If you own none, that's fine as well, right? So it's quite insightful. So please, the more we have from you, the more we can use that information to have our lobbying efforts heard around regulation, protecting consumers, educating consumers and so forth. So if you can get on board, please do so. Look at the show notes, but also if you're already on our database, you'll be receiving a direct personalised link today.
Last thing, Ben, we're going to go into the, for some people, an exciting phase where we're not going to talk about footy tipping until we get to the end, so that we can build up a bit of suspense. Yep. Excuse me. But just as we go into the shadows of the finals.
Because a lot of people think maybe it's just home and away season. So whoever's leading now, which we want to say to you, look, it was in terms and conditions, it is the full season, including the finals. So the winner will be announced at the end of the final series.
It will. So Father of Dragons is currently leading, 137.
Father of Dragons.
Terry G second, 136. Tips to Turk, 136.
Ooh.
If we sneak down to 44th, that's Fifey.
That's you.
Sneak a little further on, we get to Stiggy at 72nd, and then we sneak a little, actually not a little further, hang on, just stand by.
Going through the list.
Okay, there it is.
In front of you, Bryce. Right in the middle. The anchor.
162nd.
The median.
162nd is Gandhi. And a little honourable mention to Pat Gardner, who's probably our most consistent contributor on our social media, Ivis. Currently sitting in last place.
Oh.
In 298th.
Well done.
So,
Pat, good job.
There's a chance that you can get off the bottom, Pat, if you just do a couple of good...
I gave you some pressure this year, Pat, in terms of I'm miles off.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Mate, you're not
Who
even...
would have thought? No idea about football.
You're not even worth talking about.
That's why I just always pick the best, right? I always go with what you know. That's why I go with the black and white, because even though my tips don't work, my pies do.
So, all right, we will move on. We will move on. Hey, just a little shout out. We are now starting to look over the horizon, Ben, and I can see summer coming, which is wonderful.
Yes.
Particularly when you live in
Victoria.
I've
got some fun thing for Did You Know? A bit of winter Did You Know.
Oh, you're going to hang on to winter just for a little bit?
Just a little bit.
But so, folks, we want to know if TPC has transformed you, the Property Couch, if Money Smarts has transformed you, or if you've got a property journey that you want to share with our audience. We find this is unbelievably good content for our community around that sort of end of December, January period, and we want to interview you. Blatantly, we want to interview you. And we take it easy on you. We make you feel comfortable. For those people who've got a great story and they think, oh, I get really nervous, I promise you, we will look after you and make it very comfortable, because what we want to do is showcase the transformation, Ben, so that people in the community can try your story on for size and actually go, oh, that really resonates.
And these ones don't have to be War and Peace. They don't have to be long, extensive.
We can do 10 minutes, we can do 20 minutes for some people.
Short and sharp, your top 10 tips or something along those lines to help you feel a bit more comfortable. Yeah, that sounds great.
So we want to hear from you, folks. So let us know, info@thepropertycouch.com.au. You go to our Facebook page. Wherever you want to communicate with us, we want to hear from you, please. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. This is the most fun part of our year, Ben, where we get to showcase people's transformations. And it is not an advertorial. We don't want you to fluff pillows. We just want you to tell us where you were, the pain points that you're experiencing, and now what it feels like to have overcome those pain points.
All right, so for those people who have just gone through the boring stuff, fast forward, here we go, ramping it up now. Bryce, what have you got for us for our Mindset Minute this week?
Oh, Iris, did you like that? So Mindset Minute is from listener Simon today. Pay attention to what you pay attention to, Ben.
Ooh.
Common unhealthy tendencies include living in the past and fearing the future, Ben. Cherish this moment. It's the only one you've got. So I always think that's a bit of an extension of wherever your mind goes, your body follows. So that's a good one, Simon. We like that.
Ben
tends to live in the past a fair bit with football, and if I was him, I'd fear the future. But with the exception of Ben, you should take that on board. Pay attention to what you pay attention to. Common unhealthy tendencies include living in the past and fearing the future. Cherish this moment. It's the only one you've got.
Nice one, Simon. Thank you for that.
Hey, part two, Ben.
Part two of Q&A.
Of our Q&A around demographics.
Speed questioning.
Speed dating. Speed questioning is really what we're doing today. But we started last week with saving for a deposit bucket.
Yep.
And then that first-time investor, young professional bucket.
Yep.
Today we want to sort of swing into the busy couple, or maybe with a growing family, Ben.
Yep.
Or someone who's already got a property but sort of not quite sure where they're going. So, first question, you ready?
Ready.
You ready for the challenge?
Ready for the challenge.
All right, here we go. Question number one. How do we afford to invest in property when we're busy, raising a family and still keep money for holidays, schooling, a bigger home and other important lifestyle needs, Ben?
Well, in most cases, Bryce, traditionally you'd outsource it. The reality is that it's very difficult, or you'll make a rash decision. And that's what we see a lot of people doing, and I think there is a lot of people around Australia who have potentially bought properties based on the advice of their accountant or financial planner who aren't property investment specialists. And so for me, if you have done something like that and your decision has been based on a tax outcome, then a big cross for you, red cross for you. It really does come down to allocating some time. It's a bit like your health.
Yes.
Right? If your health isn't, you've got to find the time, but you can outsource a fair bit of it these days. When you and I were first doing this, Bryce, there was very little. There was some educational content out there,
much.
But it was mixed in. Yeah, it was mixed in with a lot of spruiking and a lot of hidden agendas. So, but these days there are professionals who can help you in this process. So, if I put my PIPA hat on, Property Investment Professionals Australia, I'd be looking for a QPIA as my starting point, Qualified Property Investment Advisor, have a conversation with them, understand how they get paid, understand the sort of in-depth modelling they do, and are they looking for a tailored solution for you, or are they selling stock list? Avoid the stock list sellers, is my humble opinion.
Love it, Ben. I had a chat with a listener, Scott White, who was listening to this podcast, I'm sure.
Yep.
I chatted to him yesterday.
Yep.
And it was a really great conversation because Scott was telling me how Money Smarts had transformed him and his wife.
Yep.
And the transformation went very simply like this. I was, and you can relate to this because you've told your backstory. Scott said, I was the looking after the money. I was squirreling it all away, and my wife was trying to make sure that the family was well looked after. And
I know that story very well.
Competing interests, right?
Yep.
But he said what happened is the Money Smart system transformed their relationship, the way they interacted. He also went as far as saying, well, I used to just find time to go and surf the internet, masquerading that I was doing the bills.
Yeah.
And he goes, now I've actually freed up the time because it all looks after itself.
Yep.
And then I get to actually spend more time with my family, which is having flow-on effects all throughout. So
beautiful.
I would say, how do we afford to invest in property when we're busy raising a family? I would say, build the house on a foundation of stone. And that foundation of stone is making... Because he goes, I asked him the question, would you prefer to have... I said, make the assumption everyone wants more money, right? That's
true.
But I said, if I was to give you just a little bit more money, but zero transparency around your finances, or accept less money but totally transparent and both of you on the same page, without hesitation, he goes, I'll take the latter without a shadow of a doubt. So for him, it was the confidence that came from knowing I had a line of sight on where everything was. Because if you have line of sight, then you actually know if you can make a decision to buy an investment property or not. So
we're all looking for validation in areas of our life because we've got to make judgment calls, and unfortunately we've also got to make trade-offs. So very good. Well done, Scotty.
Now we're going to put a link in the show notes, Ivis. there's a report on how to buy an investment property without impacting the family budget. I think that would suit.
Yep, that's a good one for that particular question.
All right, next one. We survived the ding, which is good. So
I thought we would have got one then. We did grab it on a little bit.
Oh, there we go. For those listening at home, that's Ivis, not us doing that. How much does it really cost, Ben? And how long will it take to build a stress-free property portfolio that we can live off?
So, Bryce, for those who listened to last week's episode, they might think, well, actually, that's a very similar question. Now, we've done that on purpose, right? Because the reality is, for a busy couple who might be in their mid-40s, having 30, 40 years to go might be a lot more difficult for them. So here's the trick, right? What a busy couple who may already have their own home or one investment property under their belt is they may have the power of equity. They may have equity in their boot that they can call upon. And that just means that if they've still got good, strong incomes and surpluses, then we would chase probably a more dynamic capital growth focused asset. And if you get those ripper assets, what happens over a 10 to 20 year period is the income is also very strong if the capital growth arrives on that particular property. Now, so for me, these types of couples, we still probably have a 20-year window, but they've got a little bit of wealth behind them. They've got a little bit of super in there. As we said, they may have that one property, so they want to potentially build on that. We've always said, really, 2, 3, 4 properties, depending on the household circumstances, is enough. And if you've got a defined benefit super program, well, you're probably going to get a passive annuity on that defined benefit, depending on what program you're running there. So for me, you're still focusing around that retirement range of 60 to 65. So if that's that 20, 25 year mark, I think you could get something done where you're going to make a material change to your current situation. It may not mean that you'll have $100,000, because with anything, money makes money. So if you've got really strong surpluses, you could still potentially make 150. But if you've got modest or average incomes and average surpluses, you're probably still looking around that sort of $80,000 to $100,000 as a passive income target for that 65 age range.
I like it, Ben. What you're saying is really play to your strengths now, because some people say, geez, I wish I had more time. But if you're back when you're 20s, you don't have enough equity. So what you've said, well, your strengths right now are, sure, you might be in that stage of life where you don't have all that time that you have in your 20s and 30s, but you do have resources that they don't have. So that helps you to understand that there is no one size fits all. People often come to us and say, are you capital growth centered, or are you income? The answer is, it really depends on what you need, because someone might need income, but someone might need growth. All things being equal, we're chasing growth. So play to your strengths and not one size fits all. All right, next one. Is passive income through property a possibility or a pipe dream? And will we have enough to retire comfortably? I reckon this is a good question, Ben, because it's almost like, is passive income possible? And is it available to anyone who's not rich already?
And so the simple answer to that is a mindset response. If you believe it's possible, then it's possible. Because history tells us that with the right asset selection, good money management, following our principles of investing, the ABCD, asset selection, borrowing power, cash flow management, defence, you will be able to achieve a passive income for life. The level of that passive income will be determined by your level of commitment and your level of focus and the time that we've got. So thinking about the levers, income, expenditure, time and target will play a role in that. And what will also play a role in that in terms of how much you want to live comfortably now versus how much you want to put away for tomorrow. So there are moving parts, but history tells us that there is a way in which you can build passive income through residential rental property. And that's how we like to do it for our clients.
I like it, Ben. So the question of, is it a possibility? My answer to that is, if you subscribe to the Get Rich Slow scheme, which I talked about last week, I think it's a possibility. If you subscribe to, and then the question is, or is it a pipe dream? If you subscribe to the Get Rich Quick scheme, I think it's a pipe dream, Ben, because the people who are in Get Rich Quick schemes are, I'm going to make some judgments here, They lack the discipline and focus of what it takes to actually get to the end destination because they need immediate results now. They're hunters, they're not farmers, right?
Correct.
And if they do that, that means that they will follow and chase the very next fad and not stick in it long enough to get the results. And the trading in and the trading out is where they'll continue to go backwards. So if you were to play, here we go, Jan Summers 101, Ben, buy the right property, correctly finance it, hold it for the long term and buy your next investment property when cash flow allows. That's when it becomes a possibility. Now to the question, will we have enough to retire comfortably? I interpret this question, having had that question directed at me over 20 years, is people say, I'm on 80 now and it's going to cost me more to retire, or I'm on 120 or I'm on 60, whatever the number is, and they have anxiety around how will I ever have more in the future when I retire, because not only do I want to have what I've got now, but I also want to go on a holiday, I want to spend more time with my grandkids, all those sorts of things. One of the things to help unpack that and get some certainty is, remember, in the accumulation phase before retirement, you're probably paying off a mortgage, you're probably paying off a car, you may be paying off some other debts. So if you do it correctly, you probably won't have a mortgage to pay, you probably won't have a car loan to pay, and you probably will have got rid of all your small debts, which means the resources that you needed during your working life to pay off those things are no longer needed. So you can actually accept less without diminishing your standard of living one iota.
And don't forget the kids. They cost a lot, so dependents will become independent as well. So when you think about all those things, hopefully that builds a level of confidence in you to sort of say, actually, they're right. Yeah, okay, you know, we've got $30,000 or $40,000 committed to paying interest and the mortgage down each year at the moment. That will come back to us. But it's not going to come back to you when you're not earning an income working. So that's why you've got to start building a nest egg, building that retirement fund to allow that to happen. So, and yeah, I come back to what's comfortable versus what's ample, what's abundant. That will also be determined by the level of action you take today to plant that seed to sit under the shaded tree tomorrow.
Oh, I like that conclusion there, Ben. So, all right, we missed the ding, Ivers. Who can we trust to set us on the right path? We recently did a Facebook Live on this, Ben, to show how the property industry gets paid. You absolutely need to know how the property industry gets paid. So we're going to put a link there to that, Ivers, aren't we? Understand that, use it, because once you know that, you'll just overlay that framework to anyone who's giving you advice, because then the idea of who can we trust becomes rock solid, crystal clear, avoidance of doubt. You know exactly what agenda the person is running when they're trying to give you the advice.
So look for experience, look for a connection with that particular person. So if there's an internal radar going up that you just sort of, you know, their language and their body language aren't in alignment, you feel like there's pressure as part of their approach, and they're trying to create a sense of scarcity, or if you don't do it now, I may not be able to get such a great deal for you. All of those things are triggers for, are they working in your best interest? So for putting it beyond any type of doubt, I would always say if I'm paying for that service, as I would going to see a doctor, there's no really agenda in there. They've got my best interest at heart. It's not to say that it's guaranteed. Unfortunately, there are always risks in investing. What happened in the past may not happen in the future, so just be mindful of that. But the trick for me is, you know, how are you paid? What experience have you got? What team do you have behind you? What resources? What analysis are you doing for me? That in-depth validation that I'm looking for. If you're getting all of that, you're with the right team.
Yep, love it. Look for the conflict of interest, Ben. You don't want to be buying property where there's a clear conflict of interest that exists.
Beautiful.
Next question, Ben. What's happening with property now? Where are we in the property cycle, and what locations should we invest in?
That's a great question. What's happening now is we're probably coming up to the bottom, through the bottom. As I predicted, I think the August result will be even better than what we saw in July in regards to movements of values. We certainly are seeing it out in the field in terms of the level of inquiry that we're getting around, the competition in the buyer's agency space across your area, and also the level of general inquiry we're getting into our business says that the sentiment's changed, and that's also evidence in the Westpac consumer sentiment survey. They say it's, in terms of is it the right time to buy property, is off the charts from where it was at the start of the year. So we're seeing that materialise into activity on the ground, and that is demand, Bryce. And when demand is high and supply is low, and we know that it is low, then we're going to see capital growth in those locations. And where are those locations, Bryce?
Well, we're buying in southeast Queensland.
Yes,
we're
we
buying in parts of New South Wales.
Yes.
We're definitely buying here in Melbourne, in some regional parts, and we're buying in South Australia. Keeping an eye on Perth, not yet.
Yep, not yet.
Keeping an eye on Darwin, definitely not yet.
No, definitely not yet.
And we avoided the temptation to be in the Apple Isle bin because of our strategy. We are not short-term trying to get a gain in the short term. We're actually long-term investors.
Correct.
So there are some people who recently bought in the Apple Isle bin of Tasmania who did very well on a short-term spike.
Yeah, good on them.
Which is great. But for our clients, we didn't want to put them into that scenario where they got a short-term lift and then for the next decade, they didn't get continual growth. So a couple of things for people to think about. But what's happening with property now, it's still a great asset class, despite the headlines, if you always chase investment grade property. If you buy investment stock, you're vulnerable.
And there's no doubt that the confidence is at its lowest ebb when it comes to medium and high density property.
Oh my gosh.
We saw last week the Four Corners program.
Yes.
We've seen a crisis of confidence in that particular area. That's nothing new to us. We've always been worried about that stock in terms of getting the best returns for our clients. And so from that point of view, just be mindful of that. So that's not to say that we don't believe in the four packers and the ones in great locations. They'll always perform very well. And certainly Sydney has proved that the unit market is very buoyant. There's good capital growth in those old existing style apartment blocks and the Art Deco blocks and those type of things. And that will materialise over time into the Melbourne market as well.
Very good. Next one is, what type of properties should we be looking at if we are in that particular demographic? Now, we talked about that last week in terms of potential, but in terms of this particular demographic, what types of properties should we be looking at? Well, you just touched on it a second ago, but you should absolutely make sure you don't get seduced by off the plan at this point, because if you've already got an investment property, you should know better. But if you're a busy couple, or just in that growing family space, you cannot afford to get it wrong at this point, because you can't get the time back. And for anyone who's in that scenario, that you just do not have the time to deal with some of the challenges that we're seeing of late for people that have been involved in that type of product. So off the plan needs to be 99.9% of the occasions. Needs to be avoided at all costs. Yeah,
so if you've got an investment portfolio underway and you've got that one property, usually your surpluses might be recovering over time. If you're a busy couple with a growing family and you haven't got that one property yet, but you're looking to now start thinking about your future now that the kids are in good education, etc., then your surpluses should be reasonably healthy, especially if you do look at the family budget and you look at the way in which you're currently paying off your mortgage. So people might say, we've got nothing there, which is what that free report, so download that without impacting the family budget. But the reality from my point of view is these couples that we normally see have pretty strong surpluses, and they've got a decision to make. Pay down and be debt free on their family home, which is not income producing and not necessarily building wealth. It does build wealth if they've got a great family home in a great location, but it's not something that I can materialise. Versus putting that money to work. And usually that comes down to, again, a sizable asset ranging from $700 to $1 million in some of these better locations for the higher income households, and in that sort of 400 to 600 range for mid-income ranges. And if we have to chase cash cows for someone who just wants to break that cycle and get out and build greater wealth, they can do that at that lower end as well by chasing a yield asset. But for us, the fundamentals don't change. Supply, demand, a fully utilised area, established area, an area that's gentrifying in different locations that has conveniences, great amenity, great lifestyle drivers, and a reputation. Status is important in these markets because bad brands of bad locations, even of the past, take a long time to build up confidence. So from that point of view, or to change their image. So from that point of view, we'll always go into those locations that have really strong, high-end images, or leafy east, wealthy areas, all those types, north, inner west, those types of areas of all cities. We study intently to try and look at what the feeling is of the buyer in that area. Because remember, owner-occupiers are price makers, investors should be price takers.
Nice. So Ben, we haven't said this for a little while, we didn't say it last week, but we have this mantra on this podcast with our community that location does 80% of the heavy lifting, Ben. So I thought it might be a good opportunity to remind our listeners who've been with us for a little while, or our new listeners, that we would prefer to buy an average property, Ben, in a great suburb before we were to buy a great property in an average suburb.
Correct.
So we need that to land. And it might be a good opportunity, you've said it before, but in the context of this particular demographic, to remind them of the Castlemaine versus Hawthorn example.
Yeah. So the example lives that if I had the same builders at the same time, Melbourne was the richest and Victoria was the richest state in the world because of the gold rush. So we had builders building beautiful Edwardian, Victorian style homes, all handcrafted by the best builders of their day and carpenters of their day in both locations. Fast forward today, even though in Castlemaine that property has achieved a premium, the premium that's been achieved in Hawthorn has pretty much been triple that, and that's because of the underlying land in that area, right? So the house has done a bit in terms of its intrinsic value to lift the envelope on a better price, and people who are successful in Castlemaine or people who are retiring out of the city who have got money will look at that asset and there is owner-occupier appeal on that asset. But if I come back to Hawthorn, not only do I have the land appreciating significantly more, and I've got that land to asset ratio mixed right, but I've also got a property that has very high status and lots of competition on it, and that's where I get my outperform result.
Like it, Ben. So it was a good reminder of the fundamental basics there. So the next question, what's the best loan structure and strategy for my situation, Ben, if I'm in this particular demographic?
Yeah, so as always, we don't want to cross-securitise our lending. We want to isolate or parcel off our owner-occupied debt. We may, that equity that we've got maybe in the boot, we want to access in the property, we'll release that out, and then we'll look at an 80% lend against the new investment property, remembering that all money flows into our primary account, which is an offset account usually against our principal place of residence if we've still got debt against that, and then we will pay all of the appropriate loans over time. So that is important. The other thing that's important is who's going to give me the best borrowing power, who's going to think about my next step as part of that story as well. So there is a lot of nuances. Over the last month, we've taken a bit more of a deeper dive into lending and what's happening in this space, and it's far more sophisticated, Bryce, than it used to be. And unfortunately, even though in this on-demand world that we like to live in, where we get angry when our Uber driver's 7 minutes away, when we used to have to wait 30 minutes for a cab, we still want more. We still want it 2 minutes away. The same applies for your mortgage broker. So be careful of the fact that it does take a little bit of time to get prepped. So if you are looking to invest in property, I always say to people, allow at least a month or two to get yourself organised, because what could also happen is part of a investment savvy mortgage broker's job is they should be reviewing your existing lending and looking at the pricing and looking at the lender that you're with. And in some cases, it may mean that you'll have to do a refinance first and recalibrate everything properly before you move into that first investment property, because cash flow is king. We've talked about it before about potentially resetting the loan, discovering the pros and cons of interest only versus principal and interest. And so from that point of view, there's a lot of work to be done, but it is always about strategy and structure before it is about price.
Yeah, you beat me to it, Ben. I was going to talk about investment savvy mortgage broker. It's really setting up your finance with a look over the hill. And you've got to look over the curve of the hill, Ben, because people often don't realise that the old school advice that you've got to pay off your home as quickly as you can might not necessarily serve you when you get over the hill, Ben, particularly if you live in a home that is investment grade, Ben, that you want to turn into an investment property at some point in the future. So you hit the nail on the head. The investment savvy mortgage broker. Folks, if we can't impress upon anything else around finance but this, it is so much more than interest rate. It is just so much more than just talking about interest rate.
You want to be at the pointy end of the bus. You don't want to be giving away money for nothing, but you can make more money out of the access to liquidity than you can potentially out of saving $1,000 here or there a year on a cheaper interest rate.
All right, well said. How can we find the best way to get started, Ben, at this stage of our life?
Well, I think it is about sitting down and aligning your personal goals with your finances. So when you can work out what you want as a family and ultimately what you want as a couple, so not only just looking at the next 5 years, but the next 10 and 15 and beyond, and aligning what that looks like, because at the end of the day, we're only investing to facilitate, hopefully, a pathway of financial peace and happiness, and money doesn't bring that to you. What does bring that to you is basically looking at what makes you happy. And if it's experiences and those type of things, documenting those and creating that vision board around what that story looks like for you. Once you've done that, because that's the hard work in my view, the next step is then doing the financial analysis, and it's pretty easy to do if you use our platform. So if you go on to tpc.moneysmarts.com.au, it's free to use. You will then be able to look at a snapshot of your financial situation. There's dashboards on there. You can see how others are spending in our Money Fit section. The Money Smarts is built into that as well. Yeah, thank you, Ivers. But that's where you would be able to get that. And the best part about it is it's not, because it's live, you can go in there and change it and have a bit of fun with it, right? All the calculations are done and it's really easy to use. So that's where I would go. Your turn, Bryce.
Well, I'm under pressure with the bell, aren't I? My advice would be to go into your local nature reserve, Ben, and find a flowing stream, okay? And just where the water goes over the rocks and it goes into the clear where there's a really strong current, I'd encourage you to get into the water and swim upstream and experience what that feels like, Ben. Because when you invest in property...
In the summer, because it'd be really cold.
In the summer's fine, Ben, but you need to be comfortable with swimming upstream because you touched on it, it's a mental game where most people you will spend most of your life with, we're lucky, we bump shoulders with investors all the time, but you even say it in your picker catch-ups, Ben, that most of the picker people like to get together because so they can talk freely to other people without fear of judgment or whatever. You are going to be swimming upstream if you're investing in property because it's a small percentage of the population who do it and an even smaller percentage of the population who follow the very basic fundamentals, Ben, so they can do it. So you need to be comfortable swimming against the tide is my advice, because if you listen to this podcast, we will equip you with all of the mechanics, we'll give you all the frameworks, we'll give you the structures, we'll give you the ideas, we'll do webinars, we'll try and give you as much technical information as we possibly can, but we cannot teach you to swim upstream. You actually have to do that yourself.
Yeah, taking that action, Bryce, taking that action.
Last one is, when should we buy the next one? After the kids are in high school, Ben?
Well, again, I know this sounds like we're on rinse and repeat here, but when your cash flows allow. And not just in the short term, but we believe that you're holding the property should be something that you want to do over the course of an indefinite period. If it's short term, it's 10 years really in our view. So if you are planning to have another child, then you've got to do some detailed analysis to make sure that this isn't going to put a lot of stress on the family, because the last thing we want to see people do is buy a property and then be forced to sell it inside 2 years. They will, in most cases, even if the property has gone up in value, lose money because of the interest that they're paid and the stamp duty that they're paid. So you've got to be really sure that your cash flows will allow you to hold it for the medium to longer term, or hopefully indefinitely, and becomes a cash cow for you. That's what we're looking for. So school, this, that, don't make the excuses. Just do the work on the cash flows, because once you know those cash flows, you will know whether it's a good time or not.
Mate, you had me at when cash flow allows. That was it. Full stop. End of story. The answer is when cash flow specific to you allows. All right, so Ben, we're now going to pivot to the experienced investor who's got established. Okay, number one, is your current portfolio correctly structured for optimal growth? And will new property strategies actually work for you? This is common, isn't it? People go, okay, I've got a property, but am I on the right path?
Well, it's portfolio, so 2 or more, right? So in that particular case, what's the quality of the assets that you're holding? A lot of people basically have sunk cost bias in staying with a property that they don't, that's not going to deliver them the return.
Sunk cost
so they're
bias,
sitting back going,
good.
well, it's going to come good at some point. 6 years, 10 years later, they're basically back to flat.
Yes.
Right? It drives me mad. So unfortunately, in terms of when you are reviewing your portfolio, you've got to have an honest conversation with yourself. Is this a dead duck? Is this a lemon?
It's a dud.
Is this a Brumby? It's a dud, right? It's not going to win any races for you. So
leave your ego at the door.
Yep, you're going to have to pull off that Band-Aid. But how do you know that? And that's the work you've got to do. So the work you've got to do is having a look at supply and demand in that area, the future of capital growth in that location, the property that you're in terms of how
recycle costs.
Recycle costs. All of those things are a massive part of getting a portfolio reviewed to make sure that your money is working hard for you. If you don't do that, then you're leaving money on the table.
Mate, well said. Hey, the next one. How many do I actually need? Folks, anecdotally, for scores and scores and scores of property portfolio plans that we build on behalf of real human beings, Ben, who have real lives and real stuff that they're juggling, typically, on average, 3 to 5 properties. Now,
correct.
I want to say this, that is not a rule. That is just a general guide. But what I also want to say is, do not get seduced into the fact that thinking that you need to have just like smorgasbord of properties, 10, 20, flips, reno. Just have some comfort and some peace around knowing that on scores and scores and scores of plans that we build on behalf of clients, 3 to 5 is all that you actually need. That should actually give you comfort in knowing that you don't need to be a guru building an empire who's got hundreds and hundreds of dollars in loans and tenants. You do not need to be that person. So do not get seduced by how many I need. Get more seduced by what value of asset do I need to control for me to actually achieve the passive income goal that I'm chasing.
Beautiful, Bryce. Well done.
Next one, Ben. How do I review my portfolio?
Well, you can see that I don't read these questions before we come in to record, don't you? It's rinse and repeat on what we just talked about before. The review has got to be clinical,
yes.
And it's got to have emotion taken out of it. So even if you own that property as a principal home before, and you're sitting up, well, it's where we had all our memories. You've still got those memories. Still got the photos, still potentially got the videos on Facebook, right? So from that point of view, move on from that if it's in an area that is going to be oversupplied or at risk of future oversupply. So you're doing several things for your review. You are reviewing cash flows, you're reviewing your lending. You're also then going to review the properties, making sure that you're getting the best rental return on those particular properties that you can. You're making sure from a maintenance point of view that the property is in a reliable and durable state. It does not have to have a brand new kitchen in it just because the kitchen's looking a little tired. I mean, ultimately over the course of the next 5 or 10 years, you might update a tired kitchen, but you wouldn't be doing that prior to that time. So it is all about those particular components. Is there any value add that you can make on the property if you're looking to release equity? And there might be the ability to tidy it up pre-valuation stage. Those are parts of that review. How often should you do a review? Really, in my view, I probably do them every 18 months. I don't have a timetable on each year, but certainly when I'm getting my rental review done, I do look at that.
All right, thank you, Ivis. The next one is how can
I'm getting buzzed more than you are. I mean, is that a sign that I ramble?
I was only thinking that. I didn't say that. So, how can you grow your portfolio quickly without risking all you've worked so hard to achieve? We would caution that you don't need to actually do it quickly. You actually just need to do it methodically, and you actually need to do it in a considered approach. All of what Ben just said before. But here's the thing, right? You've got to separate your ego and your sense of significance out of he who dies with the most toys wins. He who dies with the most properties wins. That is an ego statement. The fact that I've built 7 properties in 7 months and I've flipped 2 properties in 2 years, that is potentially an ego thing, Ben.
Not potentially, Bryce. That's why they want to put themselves in the magazines.
Correct. That's what I was thinking about.
So let's be honest with you.
Yeah.
The people who are they've got either one of 2 agendas, Bryce. Their first agenda is it is all ego, right? The second agenda is they're in the industry and they want to be able to get a cross-pollination in terms of, and I just happen to be a mortgage broker.
Yes.
And I just happen to be a property investor. And I just happen to be a buyer's agent.
Yes.
So from that point of view, it is all about one of two agendas. And we've just landed both of them. So, but if you pick well and you time well,
and you've got enough resource and you've got enough cash flow, you can do it quickly.
You can do it, right? And we've always said in terms of cosmetic tidy-ups, 100%. That's going to allow you to get more equity quicker. So if you want to get your hands dirty, but just make sure you understand you are not investing. That is not investing. That is a second job. So everyone talks about what's these new things, what are they called? Life hacks and money hacks and all these types of things.
Is that thing leveled at me, Ives?
No, but it's just another name for second job.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, right? There's a new show coming out, something like 10,000 in 10 days or something like that. I haven't seen it. Koshi's running a new show. So my point to that is, it's real simple, right? It's a job. Don't think it's easy, because it's not, and it's going to have some stress associated with it as well, and some time allocation. If you want to give up your time to be with family, friends and loved ones, you can, but that's how you have to do it.
And remove the need to think that it needs to be done quickly. It just
Correct.
doesn't need to be done quickly if you don't have to. So there we go. How can you invest in property when you're nearing retirement and are concerned about conserving your current nest egg? This is a good question, man.
It's a terrific question. I think the oldest person that I've advised to buy one more property was 62 and about 59, I think the couple were. Mm-hmm. And we had a detailed conversation around what that looks like. They were both teachers, and we bought something up in Queensland, a nice little cash cow in Ascot there. So it was real, we bought it very well in the 200s, low 200s for Ascot, which was very good going for a 2-bedroom apartment. The point being with that couple is we were very clear on what we were doing, right? We were going to give ourselves a 15-year window. The property needed to cash flow itself, so we needed to make sure that the out-of-pocket costs and the body corporates and all that were low. We needed to make sure that the property didn't have to replace its roof or do any sort of major works where we needed. We needed to make sure that the sinking fund was in good order to be able to do that. So that's an example of where I would say there's possibility for that to happen, right? There was a good wealth base behind us, good cash base behind us, that we're going to get access to the super. Now, all of those things being equal, that was the right recommendation. For a lot of people who are just starting out and they don't necessarily have a lot behind them, they could have had a marital separation after many, many years of marriage and they're just restarting again. I'm not quite sure that property is the right vehicle for them. It may be a real focus on, it may be a better focus on super than to go into property investing. But again, that's where I'd say it's case by case.
Yeah, because there's something called a transition to retirement where we generally, in that scenario, we engage our financial planner to come in and because part of the property process is having time and having income and time. And as you're transitioning out of your income space. So you make a really good point there, Ben. So as you are getting closer to retirement, there are... Don't be seduced by someone who says that doesn't matter, because it does.
So I'll put a rough guide on there, Bryce. Anyone over the age of 55 should have if they want to invest in property, should have two conversations. One with a property investment advisor, hopefully a QPIA, the other with a financial planner, and see what offers they put on the table. In some cases, you can have those in conjunction if there's not their agenda. If they're separate businesses, you almost expect you're going to get pitched. Expect that they're going to try and win your business and tell you that the best for you. But the best advisors are the ones that say, you know what, I don't know whether this is right for you. And if you can have those conversations with trusted advisors and you can bring them into the same room and say, what are the pros and cons of doing property over managed funds or superannuation, transition to retirement work, all of those things up, and you get it all up on the whiteboard, and then you can make an informed decision in terms of which pathway you'll take.
Oh, very good, Ben. So what's the truth about self-managed super fund? Should you have one? Is it set up for optimal performance? And is your current structure in danger of non-compliance?
Ooh, there's a ripper. Okay, so in broad terms, self-managed super funds are not appropriate. I repeat, not appropriate for the run-of-the-mill general public. They are expensive to set up, they are expensive to run, all the obligation is on you. So if you are being sold the idea of setting up a self-managed super fund to invest in property, then I would be saying not the advisor for you. If, on the other hand, you were sophisticated, you had professional skills in this area, you had qualifications in accounting or financial services or engineering, IT, and you are very detailed and you are a sophisticated money manager, then and only then should you entertain a conversation around the potential of a self-managed super fund, because they are the types of people that this is appropriate for. It's not appropriate for most people. Now, I'll close by saying, however, for those people who do choose to set up a self-managed super fund, they are a very, very good way of investing in property. So just be mindful of lots and lots of cons, but I sit here as someone who has a couple of properties inside a self-managed super fund. So from that point of view, I don't want to discourage the appropriate people from investigating the idea, but I absolutely want to discourage the vast majority of Australians that this is the right way for them to go.
It is fertile ground of the spruiker, Ben.
It
is the
very
place where
fertile
they
ground.
go, because what it is you're in a lower tax environment. Therefore, brand new makes more sense because it delivers better outcomes within that environment. So therefore, they've seen that as easy pickings. And then what they do, as you said, is they encourage people who are not necessarily suited. I'm making a generalisation here, but I've observed it. Not necessarily suited to being in the SMSF space, but entice them to do that based on the agenda of the spruiker. So it is fertile ground for a spruiker. So be very, very careful. Okay, last one, Ben. Let's bring it home with this question. How do I diversify my portfolio?
So when you're talking about diversification, I'm a bit like Warren Buffett here, in the sense that a lot of his general advice to the globe, because he's not just America, he's the globe, is diversification is really important. However, in his case, he's sort of saying, but I don't believe in it. Because I have a set of skills and a set of talents and a team who can find opportunities in businesses that I believe are undervalued, and I can create value out of owning those businesses or those shares, right? So really, really clever. When it comes to property investment, I take the same belief. So in terms of how do I diversify, I still believe that you can be overweighted in residential property, and now overweighted means 3 to 5 investment properties in combination with the super fund that you might have, and you might have some odd shares here and there. Don't mind that at all. But my point is, how do I then diversify? I shop interstate, Bros. I shop around the country. I diversify in regards to minimise my cost base. And in property, that cost base is 2 parts: stamp duty and land tax. So that's where I go with that decision.
Well, that's the legacy of going second, Ben, because you end up with rinse and repeat answers, because I was going to say borderless, stamp duty and land tax, so you have nailed that. So there you go, folks. I reckon hopefully that has helped you self-identify in a particular group that you're in.
Whoa.
Oh, that was a conclusion
That was good. She's wrapping up the conclusion.
On your prompting.
Yeah, no, I just give it a ding, Just give it a ding.
She was a little less dingy today than
she
she
might have
was
been
last
happy.
week.
I thought she might have gone ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's happy. Are you being served, sir?
So there you go, folks. Hopefully let us know if that was helpful. Hopefully you can self-identify with a particular bucket. And all right, so that was fun, Ben.
Yeah, love it.
So my life hack today is from another listener participation. It's from Fiona. Thanks for writing in, Fiona. Hi, Bryce and Ben. Here's my life hack. When working on multiple, this is for you too, because you're not Mac users.
Yep.
When working on multiple documents on your computer, press the Windows key and the left or right cursor key, and you can automatically split your screen in 2 and choose what open program you would like displayed on the opposite side of your screen, Iris.
So
now,
a
Macs do
single
this really
user.
simply.
Yep, got it. You need to hit the...
So Windows key.
Yep, got
so
it.
let's all sort of
I know
Windows key,
Windows
then
key.
left or right, and it opens up another window so that you can actually have 2 windows open.
On the one little screen. Normally, I have to minimise it and then I resize them. So that's
available
that's a hack.
from Windows 7 onwards, I believe. I couldn't live without it. Even with 2 monitors, I still often split these so I can see multiple documents at one time. Now for very good, Fiona, I love that.
Yeah,
now,
love it, thank you.
Now for the Mac users, Ben, all you need to do is that's just...
So that's the ones that are catching on fire?
That's a layup.
At the moment? They
Is that
they
what you're going to hang your hat on?
Can't
just
go
the
on
one,
planes?
the 15-inch... Do you remember what he said, Ivis? He said to us, oh, we might need to check this in at the airport. And then when you read the fine print, it means you can't check it in the airport. You can only have it at
Because it'll
carry-on.
catch on fire in the luggage area. I mean, how crazy is that? That's dangerous. Whereas inside the cabin, at least they've got fire extinguishers to put it out.
Yeah,
and they catch on fire.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back at the productivity centre, the productivity hub of Apple.
We love Apple.
So there you go, Ben.
We've spent enough money with them.
Now, I'm looking forward to this because I've had a couple of heckles from you on my segment.
Oh,
so
yeah,
here we go. Well, did you know?
Did you know, Bryce? Well, it's coming out the other side of winter.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a fairly reasonable winter. Ivis is ready to hit the dinger already on me. The bell, that is, the dinging bell. In terms of the footy, a couple, was it about
You've
about a
lost
month
your way,
ago.
haven't you? Do you need a reset?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Anyway, the game between GWS and Hawthorn in Canberra had a little bit of snow.
It did have a little bit
So I
of snow.
thought, okay, well, winter, snow, I'm going to do a snow theme for Did You Know? So here we go. Are we ready for that? So first of all, I'm not sure whether you're aware of this, but snow is actually clear in colour. It is not white. Snowflakes are made up of ice crystals. When light passes through it, it bends and bounces off each individual crystal. The entire spectrum of light is then reflected back to our eyes, and we as humans see it as white. Okay, but if you actually have a look at anything under a microscope, it is completely clear before.
Well, it makes sense because it's made out of
water's
water,
clear,
right?
right? So it's clear. So there you go. So it is not actually white snow. It is clear snow, and it's just our eyes playing with us. Did you know, Bryce, in Scotland, they have 421 different words for snow.
No, I did not know that.
There you go. Would you like one example?
I'd stop at a couple, but yeah, go on.
Flink drinking.
Sounds like something you do on a Friday night.
Drinking. No, I've got a Scottish. He's
Scottish.
Flip drinking.
We'll get
Flip
letters.
drinking.
People will write in.
Well, I'm just trying to have a bit of fun here, please. A bit of lightheartedness. Flip drinking.
Yeah.
Flip drinking, which means light snow.
Okay.
It's light.
Yeah.
Snow's light out here.
Okay.
So it's only snowing lightly. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, snowflakes always have how many sides? Always. Always.
Ivis.
No, this is going 8.
Yeah.
Ball. Sorry, Ivis, you're out. Bryce.
6.
6, you saw my notes. Very good. I
can see your notes.
Cheeky boy. Now, did you know some people have a fear of snow, Bryce?
No.
I have a fear of snow. And now this one's going to be interesting to see if I can pronounce, so apologies already for my pronunciation. Chinophobia.
Right.
That is a fear of snow.
Okay.
So there you go. And finally, Bryce, finally in my little Did You Know section on
When
snow.
was flicking the switch for those chinophobics?
I don't know. Because you think it's soft, but you know, avalanches maybe, who knows?
No.
Okay,
Yep.
The largest-
Claustrophobia. Okay.
yeah, claustrophobia too. The largest snowflake ever documented, right, was in Montana in January of 1887.
Okay.
Now, you know, I don't have evidence of it. It obviously melted, but it was 37.5 centimetres wide. Yeah, you can't fit that snowflake in your mouth. That one would knock you out. And it was 20 centimetres thick. That is a serious snowflake. Yeah, that's right, Ivis. Snowflake, like ridiculous. 37.5 centimetres. Now, of course, it was 1887, so it was only ever documented in that. But scientists still believe to this day that is plausible. So
Okay.
there you go. So that's
That just sounds
the
like a
world's
rock.
largest. Yeah, that's going to hit you on the head and hurt you.
Yeah.
It's sort of 20 centimetres thick, but 37.5 centimetres. So it was recorded, obviously, in the US as 15 inches by 8 inches. So there you go. There's my Did You Know as we enter winter, and for all of our snow bunnies out there who love the snow such as I do, we'll have to go up to Japan or somewhere else for a ski in Christmas time.
Do you find that's a problem living in Victoria, that you want to take your mid sort of holiday
Yep,
and
my
you want
day
to
or
go?
two skiing.
You want to go and thaw out, don't you? You don't necessarily want to go, let's go for a skiing holiday, because we've effectively come from freezing cold weather. So that's why I reckon the Queenslanders have got it made. I have this beautiful weather all year, and they go, let's just go and have a ski holiday.
Yes,
and just
true.
duck down there, get 2 weeks of snow, and then all of a sudden they're back with their boardies and their thongs. So
But that's why we're more productive down here, Bryce, because the weather is. That's why the weather was the juicy of staying indoors and getting stuff done, as opposed to getting out there and
I'm
wanting a
going to
night.
rescue you from the Queenslanders right now, but mate, did not
Love
know
the
that.
Queens.
Well
There
done.
you go.
So very good. So folks, hopefully that was helpful the last couple of weeks, bringing together those frameworks. Let us know on Facebook or wherever you like to communicate with us. And don't forget that
Oh yes, the downloads, Bryce.
the Stig is putting in an enormous amount of work, Ben, to make sure that there are some downloads to summarise the last 2 weeks. Free. Like most things we do around here, except for the occasional book that we sell, it's free. So you can go and download that for free. Ivis, where will that be? Show notes, Facebook somewhere?
All the links. Follow the links on the show notes.
Until next week, Ben.
Knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it.
See you next week, folks. Hey there folks, Bryce Holdaway here. Before you go, if you're new to our community and only listen to maybe a handful of episodes, I thoroughly recommend that you go all the way back to episode number 1, where we unpack all of the foundations when it comes to property investing. Now for those of you that might be a little bit time poor, I've got good news for you. We have a binge guide that you can download straight away, which summarises the first 20 episodes where Ben and I unpack the foundational pillars of the A, B, C, D and so much more. And you can get that straight away. If you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20, you can download it and consume it whenever you want. It's completely free and available now. And for those of you, just a quick reminder that nothing we've spoken about today constitutes financial advice. We recommend that you reach out to your licensed professional advisor so that you can look at your unique circumstances before acting on any information. Now don't forget, go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20 and get your binge guide today.